The supreme, profound, and sublime Dharma is difficult to encounter in a billion eons. Now I see it, hear it, receive it, and kept it. I vow to attain the true meaning of the Tathagata. In order to liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the supreme bodhicitta.
Now let us take a look at a journey to the West.
西游会议录啊，西游会议录现在已经到了第一站的夏威夷。
Well, we have already completed the first stop, Hawaii, and second one, Boulder, and then the third one. We are currently studying the teachings given by Rinpoche at Rocky Mountain Center. On the first day, he blessed the crowd, and the second day, empowerment. The schedule and the arrangement was like such. And next time when you arrange your time, you should also reflect how Phuntsuk Rinpoche arranged his time and his schedule. He strived to use every day of his lifetime to benefit sentient beings, and we should try to do that as well. Phuntsuk Rinpoche didn't take a day of rest or to spend some time to adjust his jet lag. And when I look back at that time, I was quite surprised, because back then I think I was rather still quite in clouds when everything happened. But when I look back now, I'm quite surprised at his energy and his eagerness to benefit sentient beings. Whenever it is our turn to propagate the Dharma and benefit sentient beings, we should also learn from that attitude and spirit of Phuntsuk Rinpoche. On July 2nd to July the 4th, Yijin taught the Treptual section of Shepkar Tsodruk Rendro's The Flight of the Garuda in 5 lectures. Since Choji only concisely explained the verses without elaborating too much, I won't transcribe the full content of these teachings, but selectively record some uncommon instructions in each lecture. Now when I think back, some of the memoir is already too long. Jetsun Ningti, for example, is something that people never received before, so I transcribed the whole thing. But the flight of the Garuda, initially it was already printed, it was already fully transcribed in Tibetan, but the transcript itself of the flight of the Garuda can be an entire book itself. So after contemplating it, I only selectively pick the uncommon instructions in each lecture. But afterwards, when I thought about it again, I think it is still quite important to make that lecture into an individual book. This was the lecture that's given in the West for the very first time. I think that each of the lectures and each of the word given by Rinpoche is worth to be printed out and to be propagated. But back then, my decision was to just choose some uncommon instructions. If I were to if I were to include the whole instruction, and then you may know, even the verses of the flight of the Garuda itself is a booklet. So when we have time and when we have the opportunity, I still wish to make that into a book in the future. On July the 2nd, prior to the actual teaching, Rinpoche expresses 2 wishes for the audience. He said that now I'm going to give you the teaching that has an auspicious connection with you. Whatever virtues the you perform, be it listening to the dharma, practicing the dharma, prostrating, circumambulating, or making confessions, the first and foremost thing to do is to give rise to bodhicitta. Whenever Phuntsok Rinpoche give the teachings, he would remind everyone to do that. This is indispensable. How do you generate a bodhicitta in your mind? You should reflect deeply in order to place all sentient beings in the perfect, complete, and unsurpassable enlightenment, a state of permanent peace and happiness. I myself must attain Buddhahood as soon as possible. It is only through the engagement of this profound teaching that I will be able to swiftly and easily attain Buddhahood. Whatever you do, really, circumambulating, listening to the Dharma, I think it's easy to say that we need to generate bodhicitta. But do we, and are we really doing all of those out of bodhicitta, out of the intention of benefit sentient beings? I myself sometimes have to confess that I don't do that fully. So we ourselves should contemplate this part deeply. I do remind every one of you to generate the mind of bodhicitta before class. But do you really do that? We need to think about it. Before the main teaching, I would like to share two of my expectations with you. First, always be mindful to practice Dharma step by step from basic level to the advanced level without mixing the order of how it should be. In other words, beginners should not perform the conduct of yogins of a higher level, and advanced practitioners should not engage in basic practices on a level of a shravakas. As the stainless light says, beginners should not perform the conduct of yogins. Yogins should not perform the conduct of Mahasiddhas. Mahasiddhas should not perform the conduct of omniscient ones. So you should know your level, and if you're a beginner, you should practice as a beginner instead of leap over to the other levels of practitioners. For you to carry this instruction into your Dharma practices is my first wish. Second, since you have been practicing both Mahamudra and Dzogchen in an unbiased way throughout these years, I hope that you will persevere in your practice in this manner without abandoning either of them. It must be known that Mahamudra and Dzogchen is like the feet and the eyes. Mahamudra corresponds to the feet that walk the ground and walk the road, and the Dzogchen corresponds to the eyes that see the road. Why is that? Mahamudra emphasizes the skillful meditation practices and enables one to abide single-pointedly, and Dzogchen emphasizes on the ability to directly recognize the view that enables one to clearly see the nature of mind. Both are indispensable, and the absence of either will make ultimate enlightenment unattainable. Just like it is very difficult for one to reach the destination if he or she does not have eyes or feet. Lacking the view of Dzogchen and practicing skillful meditative practice of Mahamudra alone will not enable one to cut through the root of samsara. In the other hand, if one just focuses on the view of Dzogchen intellectually and fails to apply meditative practice of Mahamudra, the Buddhahood is also not achieved. This is why our transmissions of great scholars and Mahasiddhas in India and the land of Tibet, these two practices were always combined together. Shaka Pandita Kunga Gyaltsen, the emanation of Lord Manjushri, once said, when the foolish ones practice Mahamudra, for the most part it caused them to be born as animals, or to take rebirth in the formless realm, or to fall into the shravakas state of cessation of perceptions and feeling. This suggests that to practice Mahamudra inappropriately may cause one to neglect the practice of vipassana and then fall into the extreme of indifference that does not contribute to full enlightenment. Thus, one will very possibly continue to be trapped in samsara. Rinzin Jingmei Limpa also said that clinging to shamatha, where the mind is is clear and empty, discerning the nature of all phenomena with a distracted mind and abiding in the state of indifference with no action are the three deviations from the path of Dzogchen. We should know that vipassana without shamatha will merely lead to a state of discrimination and distraction, which cannot lead one to enlightenment. Therefore, I encourage you to always stick to your present practice of applying the instruction of both Mahamudra and Dzogchen and never make them separate on your spiritual path. This is my second wish. Of course, one needs to rely on a perfectly qualified teacher to engage in such a practice to attain accomplishment. In fact, these two wishes are not just wishes to the practitioners of that center. This is also a wish to us. We probably not know Mahamudra very much because not many people receive the oral transmission of Mahamudra, but we do have the oral transmission over here and lineage transmissions over here. So we'll see if there is an opportunity for you to receive that as well. If an individual tries to practice alone without receiving any guidance from the experienced teachers, it will for the most part bring failure. Many of you have close connection with many lamas of Kagyu lineage. In your area, there are actually some Nimapa teachers as well who are endowed with inconceivable qualities. It will be of great benefit if you can invite them and respectfully receive teachings and instructions from them. Favorable conditions for inviting teachers from faraway Tibetan regions are difficult to come by. Take me as an example. I am old and suffering from illness, and I also have lots of disciples at Larangar who needs my guidance. Therefore, due to my personal reasons and various external factors, I'm afraid that this is probably the last time for me to come to the U.S. Ponzo Rinpoche, I believe this is the fourth time he mentioned this. He also mentioned this in Boston as well. So Ponzo Rinpoche, I think 60 years. When Ponzo Rinpoche visited, he was 60. So it's not considered as a senior of age, neither too young nor too old. And his health was not that bad, just some very common illness. But Ponzo Rinpoche probably felt that it was his only time to propagate Dharma teaching to the West. He knew that he only has that opportunity. So that's his one-time Dharma propagation in the West. That's the one-time plan. Nevertheless, I hope we can build closer and deeper connection through this trip. That is focusing on the Buddha Dharma in these few days. We can benefit each other by exchanging the teachings, having discussions, resolving doubts, as well as sharing experiences about our personal practices. Such as gathering is completely different from worldly assemblies, such as those with political agenda. I also feel my disciples will have a good affinity with you, and I hope in the near future we can build auspicious and close connections with you. Ponzo Rinpoche also mentioned this for 3 times to the centers of Trungpa Rinpoche and to the various centers. And indeed, later I also traveled to the centers of Trungpa Rinpoche a few times, and whenever I mentioned the name of Trungpa Rinpoche, the disciples would all tear up, and that really is truly touching. I also have personal connections to some disciples of Trungpa Rinpoche, and this time the teachings provided over here are because of the contribution of the Shambhala archive, which is the disciples of Trungpa Rinpoche. This time the teachings will be translated into English as well, and it's going to be shared with everyone later as well. It is Nowadays, the religious books are difficult to be published, and the regulation for the religious books without ISBN numbers is that it can be shared within the religious centers. It is still legal. It is not to make a benefit. So the Tibetan version and the English version will be distributed. It is not to gain any benefits, any monetary gains from those books. And before the anniversary of Ponce Rinpoche's parinirvana, those books will be distributed and to be given to those who contributed to the project. And I hope that those people who can speak various kinds of language can also try to translate it and give teachings of this book to people who speak different languages. We should use this way to commemorate Ponce Rinpoche and to know Rinpoche's dharma activity. Ponce Rinpoche, all the way from his teenage years to his right before his parinirvana, he's taught all the way through his life, and this time the teachings that he gave to the Western audience is then presented to everyone in this format. Where if you have gratitude, if you want to receive blessings from Rinpoche, then this is the way to remember him through the books and through the study of his teachings. Now, those who haven't got the books, then slowly and slowly we will try to provide those texts to you. It is hard to provide everybody with this text all at once. The Tibetan and the English version will later be distributed to others as well with only the cost price. It is not to charge people for the book. It is rather to only distribute to others with the cost price. If I want to earn money, I can get some money from making it into the video DVDs and into various formats to earn money. But what's the point of earning money? My intention is to distribute the teachings of Ponce Rinpoche, to remember Rinpoche, to also show our gratitude to Rinpoche as well. This is the year of the 20th anniversary of his parinirvana. So what's really important to me is that as long as there are many people who can read this book, who can study and be benefited from the Dharma teaching of Rinpoche that he took 30 years back, I think it would be the most wonderful. Well, I traveled with Rinpoche back 30 years back, and other than the difference of the power of his blessings and his presence is different, the teaching is exactly the same. We have the video and audio for the teachings as the base to make this book. Also, I've collected these materials. I've been collecting these materials for years, and maybe because of my habit of collecting the teachings, and maybe because of my sense of thinking that these materials are really precious, and I think it would be really important to share it with others. now it is being compiled together to share with everyone. Whatever you have now, your faith, your dharma practice, and your compassion, in fact, all comes from Rinpoche, all comes from Yejinor. The fact that you can get ordained and you can listen to this dharma teaching over here, the reason that you are a Buddhist, the reason that you can receive the lineage teachings is because of Rinpoche. So Rinpoche over here says that this has nothing to do with any political or economic issue. It is just my heartfelt wishes and blessings for all of you based on pure motivation. The above are my pieces of advice to you with regard to practicing the dharma and building connections with the gurus. Pansuk Rinpoche addressed this particularly because of the rather a little bit of complex geopolitical relations between United States and China, and I think it's similar to now. Back then, however, people used to say that, well, it's easy to get some US dollars and you can bring those back to here, but it really wasn't easy. And also, Rinpoche's intention was not for any of political or economic issues, because political reasons, but because of political intentions or political issues are rather quite complex, so monastics don't get involved with that. And for economic issues, it is not for that at all. He rather has a pure motivation to just benefit the sentient beings and to make connections to the sentient beings. Now we're going to study Shabkar Tsodruk Vendros, the flight of the Garuda, the textual part. Alright, haha, since my eyes cannot see clearly the text, my ears help me to read it. I will explain the root text while listening to its recording. Pansuk Rinpoche, because he couldn't find his recorder for a long period of time, so he was explaining to everyone. Well, at the beginning or before our trip, Pansuk Rinpoche asked me to get the recording of several texts, so I asked Chinmi Rinzin Rinpoche to record it before we departed. And Yijinor would then play his mini black recorder and started the teaching from the beginning. Namo Guru Bhya. He then started the first verse from the illuminating sun disk of your loving wisdom. Limitless rays of compassionate light shine forth. I pay homage to Choki Gyalpo, who in a single instant dispels the darkness of ignorance of all beings in the three realms. And then ended at this is the song which indicates how to ascertain the character of the basic mind in its natural state. At the end of the lecture, Choji summarized the teaching with the following words. Initially, I wanted to give you the oral transmission for each of the 5 lectures, but because I'm not in Larungar, I feel a bit uneasy about giving oral transmissions through the phone. So we'll see what we can do about this. He said that when you practice shamatha, it is not enough to just remain in a single-pointed meditative absorption. You need to determine the genuine mind as it is during you need to determine the genuine mind as it is during the single-pointed meditative absorption, and this constitutes the path of Mahamudra. Then further investigate the nature of mind and recognize its true reality. So you need to abide at the same time to make observation of the true nature of the mind. This is the path of great perfection. Therefore, when it comes to follow the path of Mahamudra or the path of great perfection, their essences are the same. If the mind exists, ascertain its existence. If it doesn't, then ascertain its non-existence. Just like this, through investigate the very nature of mind. It's easy to say, but I think you will have a better or clear understanding of it through direct pointing out. Today we should stop here.
Sonamanda Tamche Zubanya Tona Nebe Jana Panshe Jirga Nanji Ralon Tribaye Tribam Solen Jova Adjura Varasho